Well, hello again, class, and welcome to topic 2 for week 12. And as you know, this is a continuation of the discussion of handling objections. In the first topic 1 set of slides, we talked about the barriers. We're talking about objections as being barriers to be removed, kind of a different way of looking at it. And we talked about reducing reactance, reactance meaning that people want to feel that they're in control. They don't like to have products or services pushed on them, and if they do, they will in a sense push back in some way or end the discussion about the purchase decision that they're involved in. We talked about easing endowment. Endowment meaning that when a person prefers the status quo. And again, as we go through, we have 3 more of these barriers to talk about. Keep in mind that some part of each one of those barriers may reside in us and reside in for the salespeople, reside in the customers that we're working with and selling our products to. So the third, fourth, and fifth barriers we'll talk about in this set, shrinking the distance. And we'll be talking about shrinking the distance between a person's view and between new news that you might receive and your existing views. We're going to talk about alleviating uncertainty, and then the third one is finding supporting evidence, or also in this slide set, I also referred to this as corroborating evidence. That is, it's kind of like a testimonial. If one person tells you they like a product, that's one thing. If 5 people tell you it's something else, it's even more meaningful. If 10 tell you, it's certainly the corroborating evidence is growing. That supporting evidence is growing. So let's look at this concept of distance. And the idea is that we all tend to compare new information to our existing views. Customers that we're trying to sell to, they compare new information to their existing views. And within that, in that discussion of distance, we're going to talk about shrinking the distance as the solution to this problem of distance. And this is, let's call it psychological distance. And there's also we found that there is a zone of acceptance. It's the area close enough. It's when a person finds new information, let's say new information about a product, that this new information is close enough to their existing views that they're willing to consider it. Let's look at it, or the flip side of that is, if some news is so far outside of what their current belief system is, then they will fail to consider that information. So when new information comes in, people tend to compare it to what they now believe. Some experiments have gone back over. It's a well studied topic in psychology. Psychological experiments have gone back 50 years, and in terms of trying to find out that when people find an area close enough to their existing beliefs, and whether or not what they consider as valuable information. Information that is too far away from your current perspective falls in an area of rejection, and it'll get discounted. Some of the material I've read recently is about doctors deal with this issue when they're trying to get patients to change to healthier behavior. One solution is to start by asking for less, asking patients to do less, and to break down these suggested changes into chunks. Well, one story is about a doctor who was dealing with an overweight patient who was drinking 3 liters of Mountain Dew every day. The doctor she knew that telling the patient to quit cold turkey would fail. So she asked him to try to just 2 liters a day. He grumbled a little bit, and then he made the switch and to 2 liters a day. And then on the next visit, some few months later, she asked him to cut down to 1 liter a day. And only after that, after he successfully accomplished that, did she suggest cutting soda out entirely. Now, a follow-up to that is that the man still drinks a can of Mountain Dew every now and then, and he's lost 25 pounds. And so that's an example of breaking down the task into chunks so that the information that the doctor was asking of him was closer to reality for him. Asking him to give up all 3 liters of Mountain Dew all at once was too much of a task. Breaking it down was more acceptable. Product designers talk about gradual shifts, or kind of stepping stones from one product to another. It's a way it's a psychological way to make a shift feel less daunting. It's kind of dipping your foot in the water before you jump in entirely. There's an Uber story about using this gradual shift, and Uber's initial model didn't depend on persuading people to take a ride in a random stranger's car. At least that's how one person described the way Uber works today. The company started instead by making high-end black car service more acceptable. Kind of, black car, kind of the limousine. Often you see those kinds of cars, from airport pickups, for example, and kind of limo type of activity. So only after that gained acceptance did they move down market to Uber X, which is a cheaper non-luxury option. So the story is, if Uber had asked people to make such a big change from the beginning, they might have failed to do so. It was too far from what they were used to. So Uber took the step of going from not going directly to sort of a random, as they call it, a random stranger's car, that anonymous car that's going to pick you up for your Uber ride. You don't know what car is going to be picking you up until just shortly before the car picks you up, and you get that little picture on your cell phone. If Uber had asked people early on to make the big change, it probably would not have happened. So, thinking about that in terms of talking to the prospect when objections are being raised, it's in terms of asking them maybe to buy, maybe not place as large of an order. Getting that, in a sense, getting the order within their zone of acceptance. It might be about the quantity of merchandise or the size of the product you're trying to sell to them, or if you're selling to dental software to the dental office, and they maybe instead of trying to sell both the office management package and the X-ray package, it might be selling one or the other, because getting the dollar amount of that transaction within the zone of acceptance. So to overcome that, the distance effect, what we hope to do is find the prospect's zone of acceptance, which is an area close enough to the prospect's existing beliefs that they'll consider new information. So we need to move toward and understand, and some of this may even go back to early on in the 7-step process of selling, in terms of getting the pre-presentation, the pre-approach, of finding out, really knowing who your prospects are, knowing them well enough that you may be able to gauge what some of the possibilities are to their existing beliefs about a product, or what they may be willing to pay for the product or service would be part of that. The other another one of the barriers that we run into, and that is brought up as an objection, and as we see it as a barrier to to be removed, and that is to alleviate uncertainty. Certainly, dealing with selling products and services, it involves change, and change involves, some level of risk. Will the new product to the customer, will the new product be better than the old one? Will the new initiative, whatever it is, really save money? So to ease uncertainty, there's the recommendation as far as handling that as an objection is to lower the barrier to the trial. It's to change usually involves risk, so lower the risk. Don't just tell people that this product is better. Allow them to experience it for themselves, maybe for no charge for a limited period of time. In the mid 2000s, which is just not that many years ago, but now when I mention the product, you'll think it's been around. It's realized it's something that we take for granted now. But Dropbox was in the mid 2000s, 10 years or so ago. People didn't understand it. They didn't understand cloud storage, and they worried that it would be difficult to use and that they might lose all their pictures and all their material and all their documents if they use this particular product, let alone pay for it. So Dropbox became part of a group of companies that started giving away a version of their service for free, helping people to try it, resolved their uncertainty. Not only resolved uncertainty, but helped many of them to decide to upgrade to a better version. They liked the basic product, and the basic product was pretty good. And then as they got to understand that, they added upgrades and paid, the premium for some of the upgraded products and prices and additional storage. So they were able to actually, that kind of a strategy, giving away free service early on, helped Dropbox to build into what it is today, which is a billion-dollar company. Back in 2008, another story is Honda Motor Company, Acura division, was particularly concerned about some research that was showing that their luxury brand, that Honda's luxury brand, i.e. the Acura, wasn't as well trusted or as well known as its rivals. So Acura decided to partner with a hotel chain called the W Hotel chain, which is on the high end of that lodging business. And they offered, from those hotels, offered guests a free ride anywhere in town in an Acura. There were probably a lot of people who didn't know about Acura or had never maybe thought much about it. But if they needed a ride somewhere, why not get one for free? And the rides removed uncertainty. People, getting somebody into a car is, as you know, when you're in the car market, or if you're selling your car, what you want to do is get the potential buyer into the car, because that's a big step in getting the person to pass the objection phase into real interest and your ability to close the sale. I think something else about relieving uncertainty has been well known, and many companies have done this, and many products are known for doing this. But it's reducing uncertainty by making the sales transaction reversible, make it easy to return the products or to cancel services, such as online services. Thinking of a company that I followed probably through their whole history to date was Zappos online shoe business. So from first when my wife and I first noticed that and started using Zappos, and if you've used it, you know how quick they deliver the products. And of course, they're not the only one that does this. I'm just using them as an example. But they made it very easy to return products, order online, and with shoes are one of those products that do need fit is of primary importance. So that was making that decision, that your purchase decision is reversible. That is, make it really easy to send them back if they don't fit or for whatever any other reason, with shipping paid both ways. That is certainly something that I believe that is one a really good example of reducing uncertainty. Many companies have done that. Many companies will continue to do that. Think about that whenever you're involved in a business that lends itself to that. It certainly has been a good one, and it's reversible, and it's that uncertainty. Especially, again, thinking back to the fact that if you have some reason to believe that of the 5 barriers that we're talking about here in these 2 slide presentations, if you're thinking that uncertainty is a primary barrier in the minds of the customers that you're dealing with, then put your effort into thinking about reducing that uncertainty, making the product reversible, giving a person a chance to try it out, help them feel comfortable, help them feel comfortable with that product. Overcome it. So allow prospects to experience it for themselves, and if they don't like it, they can send it back. The final and 5th point is to find corroborating evidence, or I think some other places in the slide presentation I might have used the word supporting. Find supporting evidence or corroborating evidence that in a sense speaks for more than one person. For big changes that you're going to make, in your life, and for big purchase decisions that you're going to make on behalf of yourself or your family, or maybe on behalf of the company that you're working for, and you're making purchases on behalf of the company, you'll probably want to hear from more than one person. You might even, check yourself out on this to see that if when you read product reviews, whether it's Yelp or any of them that are in-house for the company that selling the product that you're looking at, is one recommendation good enough? Is one 5-star recommendation good enough? Sometimes, probably oftentimes, hearing from one isn't enough, because if you're like me, once I start reading a review, then I'll read another one, and then I'll look at the the highly rated reviews, look at the negative reviews too, to see what they have to say. Sometimes the negative review can be corroborating evidence, because it can, in a sense, you can see there that the person, from what they say, they bought the wrong product. They bought something maybe based on price, when in fact they didn't buy it on the features that they really needed. And so you can learn from even those so-called negative reviews, and of course you can learn a lot from positive reviews. Or reviews are just in general, it's a very handy kind of helpful information to help us make purchase decisions, whether we're buying for ourselves, our family, or for our businesses. Some of the things that have, some of the examples that you can find, doctors, for example, are doctors waiting to adapt new drugs sometimes wait until they see what their colleagues are doing, whether they're using a particular product. One of the sort of a very popular job for some new college graduates is going to work for pharmaceutical companies selling prescription products, pharmaceutical products, or medical equipment to doctors and hospitals, and finding out sometimes visiting a doctor and talking to the doctor who is your prospect, let's say, may be more interested will be interested in what the product does and how it's developed and those kinds of issues, but also in terms of who else is using them. Doctors will, sometimes will wait, and each of us has our own kind of tendency to to be either an early adopter or a late adopter of a product. Some people want to be among the first to buy a new product. Some people want to be among the last. They want to make sure everybody else has tried it before they take a try at it. This brings up the topic of showing strength in numbers. More good reviews are better than a few, as we've already mentioned. That this one here is something you might recall, as this might be familiar to you from your marketing course, is a discussion of diffusion of innovation. It's the marketers are looking for adopters, people who are early adopters. Those are the people who can become spokespersons for the product. The innovators are the early ones. The innovators are the people who are among the first the first group to buy a new product. So you might think of that when a new cell phone comes out, when new earbuds and other electronic products are introduced. Where are you in this chart of adopters? Are you an innovator, an early adapter, early majority? Many people, if you want to be the last of those to buy the product, if you want to be among the last 16% of the people to buy the product, that would put you way there on the right end in the laggard category. That's which the laggard word there, it looks like my picture might be covering up part of that word, but that is laggard. What I think the significance of this is, and what I'd like to just spend a couple minutes talking about this particular slide, is that I think this has there's some validity here. I think there's a great deal of validity to this particular graph. Over long periods of time, I think we can identify the people who were among the first to adopt a new fashion, a new electronic gadget, some new piece of software, a new kitchen appliance, it could be a new paint color, it could be a new style of it can be, it could be even I've seen research in areas like this is new hairstyles, anything new that comes out. There will be people who will be on the front line there, and they'll be the innovators. There'll be another group slightly behind the innovators, the early adopters, who look to the innovators kind of as role models for adopting products and services. And then there's there's a chasm in there, which is the gap of when we jump. That's quite a jump there from the early adopter group into the early majority. Oftentimes that might take that big gap there might take some time for that to be for that to happen. But in any case, it will eventually happen. There will be more people who will take on the product. There will be that early majority group. There'll be that late majority group. There'll be that laggard group. Sometimes it can be the life of this diffusion cycle can vary. It can be a long time coming, a long time practice. It might be a style, a type of clothing style, for example, that might be in popularity, getting more popular, and then sort of tail off, and it might take a few years. Some types of new products maybe take several years. On the other hand, there could be you can think of fad types of things, fad products and styles that might go from innovator to laggard in a very short period of time, in one season. It could be oftentimes in normal times when we talk about the late December, last part of the year holiday shopping in toys, or probably in November, December, makes up, it could be from toy manufacturers and toy retailers. It could be, it could be easily 40 or 50% of their annual sales happen in November and December. Um, so thinking of that, it might be that this year's fad toy item may go through that cycle in a year. It may, or in 2 months. It may start and finish from innovators who are the early ones to get the product, until the laggards are in there in mid-December trying to shop for the product, and it's off the shelf already. They're all sold out. So, kind of thinking of that, and then that's kind of the significance of the diffusion of innovation theory. How you might use that when you're talking to your prospective clients, prospective customers, and you're doing the research on them. How long they've been in business, what other kinds of, you might try to look into things like where are they kind of more or less in this diffusion of innovation cycle? Do they tend to be, have you found out that they tend to be early in the adoption of new products? We use the example of doctors. Some doctors like to be trying out the new products and early on. Other ones like to be waiting to see how, even though they've been approved by the Food and Drug Administration and tested, some may be more conservative and think, well, I'll just kind of keep going with the status quo until I find some reason to reason to change. But I think what you might look into when you're researching your prospects is kind of finding out, do they tend to be early? Do they tend to be innovators? Do they tend to be early adopters? Or let's swing right to the end. Do they tend to be either the late majorities or the laggards, the last people who would buy a new product or a new piece of software or a new service? So kind of that information could be useful to them. And think about it this way: if your client and if your prospect is more or less a late majority laggard type of purchaser, then recommending the brand new, right out of the lab, innovative product might not be your best recommendation. You might want to do more of more of a disruptive innovation kind of a thing, and not go with the brand new innovation, but maybe with something that does more than the products that they have now, does more than the software that they have now, does more than the hardware that they have now, but not quite up to the leading edge productivity maybe that the innovative product does. So just because it's a brand new product and you're real happy to be selling it, and you're glad your company has this product, maybe finding out where your client is in this diffusion of innovation cycle, and tune your sale to them, because ultimately you will be successful if you can find out what it is they want, where they are in terms of where their thinking is, and that's what we're talking about in terms of our selling job is to find out what it is and how we can be helpful by providing to our customers what it is they want. So, kind of a quick summary. We talked about then in these topic 1 and topic 2 sets of slides, we've talked about these barriers, and one of them is the first one we talked about was reactance. That is, people will push back if they feel they're not in control. They want to feel in control, so help them feel in control. Give them opportunities to know that they're in control. Let them know that they're in control of this this purchase decision, and that your job is to help them make the right decision. Easing the endowment when a person prefers the status quo. Help them to see how the status quo might be beneficial, but only in a very short run. Help them to realize that maybe now is the time to switch to the new product, to switch to the new service, and that quickly they will find that their business will be more productive. They'll save money. They'll treat their customers better if they have the new product or service. Think about shrinking the distance. If people are, and this maybe is related a little bit to what we were just talking about with the diffusion of innovation. Find out like where their thinking is and where their views are, and talk to them and make your presentation to them in language and in presenting products to them that are closer to their existing views. In other words, if it's too radically different, okay, they're not going to be interested in it. Think of how you react to these things. What is your own zone of acceptance? And we all have one. They're different. They're of different sizes, and they may vary, and they probably do vary depending on the kind of product or service. Probably on the price of the product or service would have something to do with that as well. Let's think about uncertainty. We all feel some degree of uncertainty, so let's find ways to lower the perceived level of risk. Let's give the prospect a chance to use the product for free, to try it out, to buy the product on a 100% money back guarantee. Anything that will allow them to experience it. I think maybe that's the key word. Giving them the experience without the risk is what you're going to try to do there. Find some ways to do that. It may be that maybe you can't give the product away, but maybe you can give them make a deal of some sort, partial refund. You can give them maybe a discount for trying the product out. It might be that you can give them give them a chance to be maybe use them as a spokesperson for if a person who perceives a lot of risks then tries a product and likes it. Maybe they should be a good spokesperson for that product to their friends in the industry, or if it's a consumer product, to their friends, in a sense that I saw risk in this product. It served me well. I recommend that you try it. That hopefully they might be able to make that kind of a statement on your behalf. And in terms of finding supporting or corroborating evidence, trying to use that diffusion of innovation kind of thinking to first not recommending that a person who's usually slow to buy new innovation, just don't recommend the brand new cutting edge innovation to them. You might mention that your company is so happy to be able to offer that, but talk to the client in the using language such that we see that you're using this a particular product, and we have something that is kind of similar, but a little bit better, but not radically different. That kind of thing. So you can give them something new. They can have an improved product. They can serve their customers better with it, but you're not asking them to take on something that they had never really considered. Get something in there. Find something that fits where they are in that diffusion of innovation. So.